Hey guys, welcome to Max's Lineup Lab. I'm looking at week 12 right now in the Millionaire Maker, and I'm going to show you guys how we can predict what the lineup construction of the field might look like, and then try to figure out how we can differentiate our lineup in a way that's going to help us win a GPP by being unique and different. So I'm going to start with just figuring out sort of what plays are common in the Millionaire Maker this week. I'm going to start at running back and go down to Thomas Rawls at 4,500. Obviously, he killed it last week, and that was against the 49ers. He has a tougher matchup against the Steelers, but I still think people are going to be all over him because of this price tag at 4,500. And honestly, he's certainly worth it. I don't think he's worth fading, but I do think this is going to be a guy that a lot of people are going to start off their lineups with. In terms of quarterbacks, my guess is we're going to see a lot of Brian Hoyer lineups. Hoyer is 5,000. Get a start for Houston. New Orleans pass defense is really bad, and Houston's projected to do quite well. And I think people recognize that Hoyer is actually pretty good. Could also see people going Blake Bortles as well. This is a really weird week, but Bortles has a good matchup against San Diego. And San Diego's just been awful, so I think that makes sense as well. And I really don't see people going higher price than that. I could see Eli Manning probably being the most popular play at the quote-unquote higher priced places, or maybe Carson Palmer. But I think people are going to keep it really low, and people do like to stay towards the min-salary quarterback anyway, so I definitely think we'll see this as well. In terms of defense, I think that probably the Chiefs are going to be the most popular. It's also a pretty barren week for defense. You can see the Browns being used as well, but let's just keep it in the middle of the road. And let's just analyze the running position a little more. So Devonta Freeman, he might not even play. If he does, though, against the Vikings, I doubt he plays that much. Todd Gurley against the Bengals, the St. Louis is not projected to do that well. Doubt he gets much play. Adrian Peterson, I could see getting some play, but he did burn a lot of people who played him last week, and Atlanta's in a matchup that screams out of people, so I'm not sure how often he's going to get played, but I could see him being played okay, but he's not going to be really play that people push for. Mark Ingram, not really. Lamar Miller, no, not really. Chris Ivory, no, not really. Doug Martin, I could see people are probably not all over him. D'Angelo Williams, no. I think that we're probably going to see people use guys like maybe Latavius Murray, TJ Yeldon, definitely against San Diego's bad run D, Javoris Buck Allen against Cleveland, Chris Johnson, maybe even Alfred Blue, people like this. I think that running backs are going to be sort of in this way. So I'm just going to go with Buck Allen because I know people just love the matchups. So what we see here is my average salary remaining is 6,600, which is quite a bit, especially given a tight end. I don't think people are going to go Gronkowski. Probably not Eifert against St. Louis. So we're going to have Delaney Walker and Gary Barnidge are probably going to be pretty popular plays. We're just going to go with Delaney Walker right here. So now I have 7,000 each for several wide receiver positions in a flex. I think DeAndre Hopkins is going to be a popular play, especially because he's affordable. And basically what this does is we can afford several high-priced wide receivers. And let's say Brandon Cooks maybe. And still have enough 4,800 left over to fill in our flex with someone like TJ Yeldon. And so I feel like basically this is going to be the standard type lineup. And it's a great looking lineup. But one thing you're going to notice is, and what we've seen here is, aside from Adrian Peterson, I think people are going to go cheap in general at running back. I think that people are going to go 5,400 below at tight end. And I think people are probably going to go with cheap guys like Hoyer at quarterback. So if this is the case, we're going to have teams that basically you can pay up for guys like DeAndre Hopkins, Larry Fitzgerald, Demaryius Thomas, and have enough money to actually have a pretty good lineup paying up for wide receivers. So I think the standard lineup is going to be paying up for wide receivers in this way. So what do we do with that information? Well, I think what this means is that low salary wide receivers are probably going to be overlooked and underowned. And so what we want to find is some of those low priced wide receivers that seem really good but are going to have artificially low ownership because of the structure this week. And one of those guys that I really like is Stevie Johnson. So Johnson has 7 catches in each of his last 2 games. These are 2 solid games for a player with a $4,500 salary. The issue is he doesn't have any touchdowns, and his production just doesn't scream out at you. And I think he's going to be really underowned, even though he seems like a very strong value play because of what's going on here with the cheap running backs and quarterbacks. And the fact is, San Diego scored 19 points against the Bears, which was 1 touchdown, and then 3 points against Kansas City. And so basically 1 touchdown in their last 2 games. So it makes sense that Johnson's production hasn't been that good. Against a bad Jacksonville defense, who's particularly bad against wide receivers, it wouldn't really surprise me to see Stevie Johnson get one of those 2 or 3 touchdowns that San Diego will likely score in this game. So I like Johnson a lot, and I actually like the idea of sort of switching it up where instead of using 2 low salary running backs, maybe paying up for Adrian Peterson, where I think that Atlanta's an underrated matchup for running backs. And then, going a little bit more with this cheap wide receiver route. And I'm seeing a couple guys here that stand out. Vincent Jackson for one, because he's going to avoid Vontae Davis for Tampa Bay against Indy. Look at Deshaun Jackson against New York. Weak secondary. He's underpriced. Sammy Watkins actually seems pretty solid. Travis Benjamin against Baltimore. There are actually some plays down here. So I think if this week, when we're making GPP lineups, we can favor lineups that have 2 wide receivers on the cheaper side, it might actually pay up quite a bit. You might be surprised. So if we do this instead, and then I pay up for a guy like, and by the way, I actually think Antonio Brown's a sneaky play here. Obviously, Seattle's is a really good pass defense, but they're not as good as they once were. And the fact is Antonio Brown is a great guy for DraftKings because of how many receptions he gets, his PPR value. Pittsburgh is going to throw a lot in this game, and I think he's definitely a favorite for 8 to 10 receptions. And they're just throwing it to him so much. I think that even against a tough Seattle D, he's going to get those receptions. He could definitely get a touchdown, and it's definitely a good play. And lastly, we can just fill this in. I think any of these guys, Mike Evans seems good. I mean, Larry Fitzgerald, Demaryius Thomas seems good. Allen Robinson seems good. Fill it in with any of these guys. Can you go with Fitzgerald? And now we've done a little tweak, but I think this lineup is much more unique and differentiated from any other lineup. I think it's going to be a much better GPP lineup, structuring your lineup this way. So I just wanted to give you a little insight about how I sort of try to look at these things and how to change my lineup structure from the field.